hello there. Well, I've been traveling a while.
Check 1, 2.
Mike? Yep. All right, well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. This is the MAPC Advanced Plans Committee meeting for Thursday, June 13th. I know it's a hot one out there. It's 81 in here. It's warm in here. So let's hopefully cooler heads prevail, right? So we'll quickly do roll call. Just go through the list. Brian Fry, present. Joe Johnson, absent. Cindy Miles, John McKay, Chuck Warren, Hugh Nix, and Leon Mader. All right. With that accomplished, we'll now move on to the meeting summary approval for April 11th. I show there were no members absent, so I would entertain a motion to approve. A motion by John McKay and a second by Cindy Miles. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We have the meeting summary approval for May 9th. I show members absent to be John McKay, Cindy Miles, Brian Fry, and Leon Mader. So I would entertain a motion of the members that were present. All right. We have a motion by Chuck Warren and a second by Hugh Nix. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Absent, abstain. Abstain. All right, motion passes two with 1, 2, 3, 4 abstains. All right. All right, so next item is County Capital Improvements Program. Daniel Schrant, did I pronounce that correctly? Trent? It's your floor, sir. You and Mr. Packer. Pardon? You know, we can move straight on to item 4.
Where to go? There we go. All right. My name is Daniel Schrant. I'm Deputy Director of Sedgwick County Public Works. We're here today to present on the 2025-2029 Capital Improvement Program that we're moving through. We've already presented this at a staff meeting for the Board of County Commissioners. So our next steps are meeting with you guys, then MAPC, and then having some open meetings and eventually back to BOCC for adoption. I'm here with Paul Cavanaugh and know how to advance this.
I think you can use the arrows on the keyboard, Daniel.
There we go. It's very delayed.
Oh, okay. Daniel, it looks like you'll have to do a verbal for the folks in the back to advance the slides. So just say next slide and they'll be able to get to it.
Okay. Next slide. I've already gone over this. All right. So right here, this is the purpose of the CIP. I don't feel like I need to read all of this. I'll just go over this first paragraph. The county's capital improvement plan policy defines capital project as a project that helps maintain, improve, or expand the county assets other than heavy equipment, vehicles, operating equipment, or software that meets one of the following criteria. So new construction, expansion, renovation, or replacement project of an existing asset and has a total cost of at least $50,000 over the life of the project, or it is a major maintenance or rehabilitation project for an existing asset, has a total cost of at least $25,000. Next slide, please. The purpose of the CIP is to identify the capital needs for various county functions and departments or divisions and prioritize all capital needs within the county government. And we've gone over this with the CIP committee to prioritize all of those projects. And then we're communicating that to all the governing bodies. And we'll have open meetings on this as well. Next slide, please. We're here today to go over the CIP, and we need to find that it's in compliance in conformance with the current comprehensive plan, the community investments plan. And so we intend to show that as we go through the presentation. Next slide. Paul, this is where I'll let you take over.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Paul Kavanaugh, Project Services Manager for the county. I know you've been waiting all year for this session, so I'm going to try to make it last as long as possible. Can we go to the first slide or the next slide? Facilities and drainage. When we categorize, we in the financial group at the county categorize these. We categorize them into 4 sections. Number 1 being the highest priority, and you can read that up here. Usually they're long-term preventive maintenance, annual things that happen. And we'll get into 2, 3, and 4 as we move through this. But you can see there, we've got flood control, system major maintenance and repair, replace roofs, replace parking lots, siren replacement and new installations. That's the emergency sirens. Those are typically annual and recurring every year. The next 3 are the main courthouse and the historic courthouse, parking garage, and public elevator upgrades. We've got 1 upgrade going on right now at the historic courthouse. Then we will take 2 at a time at the main courthouse over the years until they're done. The next is juvenile court. That's PC upgrades for the security system. That's simply hardware and programs to upgrade the security system. Building automation system, that is to make the heating and air a little bit more efficient and controllable from a single source. And if you have any questions as I move through this, please let me know and I'll be happy to stop. And what we end up with, by the way, is a book like this that has all the projects that we've received. And we've gone over every one of them and estimated every one of them and put them into this ranking. Next slide. Again, we're still on the category 1, replace the jail annex boiler. That's 36 years old. And if you can imagine, if that thing goes down, we'll have an issue. Got to find a place for those people to be. The next is the adult detention facility kitchen restoration, badly needed. Public Works salt storage building at the East Yard. And I believe that's ×2. We've got 1, just 1. Okay, good. Juvenile community-based services building, that might raise an eyebrow or 2. What we're trying to do is to consolidate all of the juvenile facilities into 1 complex down on South Hydraulic. That's juvenile field services, juvenile detention, juvenile residential, and home-based systems all into one campus. Right now it is in design, and that is undergoing a lot of reviews, if you can imagine. The next one, ADF, domestic water heater replacement. Again, that's like the annex boiler. They have several water heaters, and they're about 12. Some are 30 years old. And again, if you can imagine, if that goes down, we've got 1,500 inmates that we need to find out where to put them. So that's important, urgent. Emergency medical services access control at 18 facilities. That's just to make it a common access so that everybody can get into those facilities that has a card and works for emergency medical services. Historic courthouse data center equipment refresh. That's essentially mechanical systems to keep the place cool down and comfortable to work in, because they have a ton of equipment, as you can imagine. So that is category 1. Category 2 slides off till 2026.
Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, yes.
Quick question for you.
Yeah,
On category 1, part 1, the bottom item, the building automation system and the adult detention facility, HVAC, how much of that 11 million is the adult detention facility HVAC?
in the building automation system,
Yeah,
that is, most of it in the first year is for the ADF.
the 3 million?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that's the bulk of that year, because it's a little bit more critical than other facilities.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay, category 2, these are needs that are not as urgent, as well-defined, but we need to take a look at them in 2026. Replace the playground structure at the Lake Afton Park. Replace 3 floating docks at Sedgwick County Park. We've put in one that is all aluminum. We replaced a wooden dock that was falling apart. The staff out there has taken off 2 wooden docks that are deteriorating badly. So these are to replace 3 floating docks with aluminum. The next is Public Works, open face vehicle storage buildings ×3. Right, Lynn? Thank you. Main courthouse perimeter security, that's thinking about some bollards out in front of the building to keep vehicles from crashing into the building. You know how things go these days. So that's what that is for. Emergency medical service video surveillance at 17 posts. They're experiencing a lot of vandalism and theft. And also people work 24/7 there, and they want to have a way to help protect those people. And then the other is adult detention facility laundry equipment replacement. It's gotten quite old and worn out. I think they're only using about half of the facilities that are there because they're failed. Okay, next slide, category 2, part 2. Should be the adult detention facility generator parallel switchgear modernization. That's all of the Wi-Fi connections that run the generator, the controls of the generator. That's become obsolete. The controls have become obsolete. So this is to replace and upgrade all of that stuff for the detention facility. Next item, replace Munger and historic courthouse boiler. The next item, replace the HVAC at multiple emergency medical facilities. A lot of them are rooftops, fairly easy to replace, but a lot of them have become obsolete and are failing. Sheriff Firing Range Foundation repair. If you remember, last year we had the berm clean. That's ongoing as we speak. That's raking all the dirt off the berms, taking the lead out, repacking the berm due to ricochets off of bullets that are in the berm. This year will be the foundation repair. It's experiencing some settlement, and the walls and foundation are cracking, so that will take care of that. Next is reconfigure the appraiser suite over in the Ronald Reagan building. That's just a simple remodel. Next slide is category 3. These are projects with a lower sense of urgency, and we put them back out on the horizon in 2028. Adult residential facility over on Central, the showers in there are, you can imagine, well, maybe you can imagine they're well-used showers in that facility, but they are beginning to show a tremendous amount of wear and mildew behind panels, and controls are broken, so that's to take care of that. The next item, main courthouse employee turnstile and access control. That was requested by the courthouse police, where the employees come in on the north side of the building. They would like to put a turnstile access there to help prevent just anybody from slipping through that entrance. There's a badge button there that you're supposed to swipe your card in front of for an employee to get in, but if somebody happens to slip through, they could do that pretty easily. The next is ADA facility evaluation and report. Some years ago, I think it was 2010, they had an ADA evaluation of all the county properties, and they bit off quite a bit of those items and took care of them. There were some that were left on that. The county has since built and purchased, obtained other facilities. So this is an evaluation to check all of those issues again to make sure we're up to date with ADA. Next item, extension office updates. The next item is clear and grub FEMA parcels. County unfortunately has received a whole bunch of FEMA parcels that the government says the county has to maintain and take care of. So people have kind of squatted in those areas and created motocross tracks and camped and done all sorts of things. So that's to clear all of that out and get it more safe so that we don't have fires or crime going on in those parcels. Category 4, next list. This is simply a watch list. It's all of the programs or requests that didn't make it into the 1, 2, 3 scale. And we need more information. We need to update information, or simply they're not as urgent as the other requests. So let me go down through it quickly. Power factor correction at main courthouse, historic courthouse, and adult detention facility. That's to try to get the best energy efficiency in the electrical system so we can reduce some cost. Construct an emergency medical system garage facility to protect all the ambulances. Renovate the emergency medical services administration building. EMS post 4 replacement. EMS new emergency generators at various posts. A lot of the posts, they store medicine there, and if the temperature drops, it makes them obsolete. So this is to kick on emergency power if the power goes down. Sedgwick County Park and Lake Afton Park camera surveillance, again to reduce vandalism and crime. Renovate the Cottonwood shelter at Sedgwick County Park. Replace 4 gazebos at Sedgwick County Park. Next slide, please. Boundless Playscape rubber base replacement at Sedgwick County Park. A new dog park, fitness course, and disc golf at Sedgwick County Park. The juvenile ranch out at Lake Afton Park, they're going to do a study, a landscape planning study of that area to come up with what to do with it. Judge Riddell Boys Ranch. Campsite water hookups at Lake Afton Park. Juvenile courthouse flooring replacement. A remodel of the adult probation basement, kitchen, and conference rooms. That's in the main courthouse. main courthouse renovations for district court, and main courthouse exterior brick tuck pointing and repair of brick. The next few slides are kind of show you what the totals are by project type. And the next one is totals by funding source. Now, I'll give you an option. I can shut up or we can go through each one of these projects in detail.
I think what would be good is,
I'll leave that
since
up to you.
you're up there at the podium, any questions for Mr. Kavanaugh before we move on to the next section? Chuck, Mr. Warren.
No, software is not included in CIP stuff, but in light of hacking and attacking our computer systems, is there anything that we need to put into the capital improvement program to deal with that?
Not in CIP, but that goes into another part of the county budget.
Okay.
Yeah, it's absolutely an issue, but it does not belong in CIP.
I just had a quick question. I thought the boundless playscape was replaced at Sedgwick County Park recently.
Yep, it was. It is out of warranty, unfortunately, and it's bubbled and wrinkled like you cannot believe. I couldn't walk across it, let alone a 3-year-old. So that's to replace that stuff that was.
I just thought that was fairly recent.
Yeah, it was just a couple of years ago. And
I
think
thought it was
a
even more
1-year
recent than
warranty
that.
on it.
And where is EMS post number 4?
EMS post number 4 is, hold steady.
The former Riverside Hospital location?
Yeah, there it is. Thank
Okay.
you.
And then just a comment, and it's probably snarky, but I would expect that appraiser's remodel estimate will come in a lot higher. Ba-bum-bum, sorry. Too early,
We can, yeah.
too soon?
Too
They just
too
got their
soon.
property tax appraisals and no problems? Okay. Sorry. Any other questions for Mr. Kavanaugh? All right, thank you, sir.
All right, no problem. Lynn Packer's gonna, or Daniel is gonna take over this next section. You'll find this every bit as enjoyable as this was.
And you'll get used to these jokes, they'll keep coming, so.
All right, next slide, please. My name is Daniel Schrant. I'm back up here again to talk about the road and bridge portion of the CIP. So just a quick background on what the county maintains. We have 603 miles of roads and 606 bridges that we maintain, 19 and a half miles of bike and pedestrian paths. And then obviously we maintain quite a few traffic signs, markers, and traffic signals. Next slide, please. All right, I'm gonna go quickly through these project categories, how I'm gonna put all these projects together. Next slide, please. We're gonna be going through maintenance, enhancements, expansion projects, and quality of place. First one, maintain. This will include all of our preventative maintenance projects. So that includes our road overlays, our bridge projects. We don't do very many new bridges. So you'll see most of our bridge projects are included in that category. Next slide, please. Enhancements. These are meant to relieve bottlenecks, improve safety, add capacity to our roadways or bridges. Next slide, please. Expansion projects. You'll find that most of the KDOT projects that we're participating in will fall under this category. And those will add significant capacity to our system and create new routes. Next slide. And finally, quality of place. This will include our bicycle and pedestrian facilities that we have included in our CIP. Next slide. All right, the goals of Public Works in the CIP. We try to maintain, touch our roads every 6 to 7 years. That's about 200 to 210 lane miles per year. We also have a goal of either doing maintenance or replacement of our bridges, about 30,000 square feet of the bridge decks per year. that assumes that we get about a 75-year lifespan out of each of our bridges. So that just kind of keeps us on track on that one. Next slide, please. All right, this slide covers the proposed changes to the CIP. We have increased funding for several projects to keep up with increasing labor and material costs, which has been significant. We've added 7 new bridge projects and 5 new roads. We have pushed out the Calfskin Creek watershed project from 2026 to 2029 due to lack of funding. That's a very large project that we do need federal participation in to make it happen. So several projects have been accelerated to take its place in 2026. So on those handouts that were provided, you'll see a lot of projects that in the notes section say project accelerated. And then finally, partnerships, we're coordinating with both the city of Wichita and Valley Center on projects B528 and R379. Next slide, please. All right, under maintenance on our road system, we have 3 projects in the CIP. I'll go quickly over this, but the important thing to remember here is that this is over a 5-year period. So in R175, that's our road maintenance project. 55 million, that's $11 million per year. And then our miscellaneous drainage projects, 3.6, that is up from $3.0 million in the last CIP. So we have increased that. R175 is holding steady at 55. We did not increase that this year. Next slide, please. So bridges, just to highlight a few, the Seneca Bridge project, we have submitted that to WAMPO. We're hoping to get some participation on that project. And we also have 29 other bridge replacements in the CIP for a total of $27.7 million. B532 is a bridge south of Cheney that has been closed, and we hope to reopen that bridge. So we've included some money in there to make major repairs to the bridge. And then finally, project B520 is major maintenance. We have adjusted that to be $1.58 million. And so we'll be spending that on bridges as we see fit. And we kind of go over that on a yearly basis on what we're going to put in that project. Next slide, please. Road enhancements. I won't talk at length on a lot of these, but we have a shoulder project on Ridge Road, that's 69th to 85th. That's a sister project to a project located just to the south. So there is a project from 53rd Street up to 69th, and then this follows that project. So they go hand in hand. We've added the MacArthur Safety Improvement Project. As I mentioned, the Calfskin Creek Flood Mitigation Project moved years from 2026 to 2029. And we've added in a project for a drainage improvement near Valley Center at Meridian and 93rd. And we have a roundabout at 21st Street and 167th Street West in the CIP. Next slide, please. Some other road enhancements. We have a total of 5 road reconstruction projects. And then we are paving some gravel roads. I will note that these roads that I have listed here under the roads that are going to be transitioning from gravel to asphalt, none of those are new in the CIP. They were in last year's CIP, so they are just remaining in there as they were. Next slide, please. Expansion projects, as I mentioned earlier, the KDOT projects typically fall under these when they're on the major interstates and highways. So we do have the Northwest Expressway project in here right now that is being funded for right-of-way acquisition only. The East Kellogg improvements have been, is in the CIP. Sedgwick County is committed to $4.4 million. And then we have the K96 improvements that we added this year. And so that is new to the CIP. The K-96 improvements, for anyone that's not aware, is up in northeast Wichita to the east of I-135 and then going down to 21st Street. Next slide, please. Quality of place projects. We have two bicycle facilities in the CIP. R358 is the Maple Street bike path. It'll connect with the Goddard sidewalk network to the city of Wichita's network eventually. That continues to be in the CIP. That is unchanged. And then 382 is a new project to the CIP, and it is also being considered by WAMPO for funding. We expect that it will receive that funding. Next slide, please. And then this is how the dollar figures all break down for all of those types of projects. You can see that most of our budget is going to the maintenance of roads and bridges. Next slide, please.
Daniel, if we could pause here for any questions related to the projects that you just mentioned before you get into the goals.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't mind.
Questions?
Before, anyone on the, yes, sir, Mr. Warren.
The first one goes back to the Calfskin Creek project that got moved back to 2026. Is there a high confidence level that there'll be federal funding for that? Or we're kicking the can down the road?
I think we have it in there more as a placeholder right now. We hope that it gets funding, but that's why it got moved from 2026 to 2029 because there's no funding apparent at this time. But the city of Wichita, they're coordinating with, I believe, the Corps of Engineers to try to find some other funding mechanism for that.
The two governments have applied for some grants and have not been successful in receiving them. I think we 3 times or twice? Twice. So.
Do you come to a point where you start saving up money yourself and just realize we're going to have to bite the bullet?
I think we estimated it was a $40 million project, and the city and the county both had $5 million because it was a 75-25. But yes, at some point, you're going to have to do that. There's a group that's trying to tie the Northwest Expressway into the calfskin flooding and trying to hopefully attack it from another angle rather than just relying on it was BRIC grant, correct, Lynn?
Correct.
Thank you. Correct. So yeah, I'm trying to find other stones to overturn.
And my other question had to do with the bike paths. We've done a lot of bike paths, especially down south in the last few years. Do we have a tracking method to see how popular those are? Are they being used, or are we just building bike paths that look good on the road but not getting a lot of activity?
So WAMPO does annual bike counts. I don't know what those are down there, but they do bike counts, and we try to fill in gaps with these projects. So our bike paths typically are connecting one system to the other to just kind of increase the ability for people to move around. So the 63rd Street pathway will connect the city of Derby with the city of Rose Hills system. So you'll be able to travel that whole way on the side path. And then, as I mentioned, the Maple Street one will connect Goddard's network with the city of Wichita's.
Okay, I believe Mr. Nix had a question.
Just kind of a follow-up on the calfskin project. Seemed to me that at least once a month or thereabouts, we keep bumping up against the calfskin. We get confused between the cowskin and the calfskin if you don't live out west.
Right.
I mean, you don't really know the difference, but there is a difference actually. Cows and calves and that kind of thing. But we keep bumping up, we developers keep bumping up against that, and we keep dancing around it. Lynn probably knows that better than anyone else when it comes to drainage and flooding and all that kind of thing. So it's a real wrestling match as far as I can tell.
Yep.
Between developers and the county and having enough money to take care of the problem, so.
Excellent point, and I know it was part of the city of Wichita's federal legislative agenda every year, and it's been in front of the senators and the congressmen both to try to help get assistance. So the awareness is there, but at some point we need to start putting some real money into it because that is where the growth is happening. We know it. So.
And if they ever need a tour, there's some of us who live out there our entire life, we can take them on a tour and show them the difference probably between calfskin, cowskin, and sloughs that run through that part of the world. So.
It's true. I live on a big slough.
One other question. 32 traffic signals that we're maintaining, I guess. But it looks like further on in the report that we're trying to take care of some of that problem with the roundabout I saw. So my question is, we probably need more than 32 traffic signals in the county. I'm pretty sure we do. And I'm wondering if a roundabout is a cheaper way of taking care of that problem. I can't imagine that it is, but I see that we have one in place at 167th and 21st, so.
So traffic signals and roundabouts, depending on whether you're doing a single lane, double lane, and the location, they can be cheaper when you're talking about what we call like a traffic signal, or excuse me, a traffic circle, like what's in Delano. That's considered a traffic circle. Yeah, that's going to be cheaper than signalization. Out on 21st, 167th, we'd be doing a dual lane. You're probably going to get about the same cost. It's going to cost about $1 million either way to do a roundabout or a traffic signal. The benefit of the roundabout is you cut your conflict points from 32 down to 8, which is a significant increase in safety. In addition to that, you don't have traffic that needs to come to, the majority of the time doesn't need to come to a complete stop. You continue on through without actually stopping traffic.
Then where's the intersection of 21st where we have I don't know where we have so many deaths, but we've had a number of deaths. You drive by there and you see all the monuments in the ditch.
That's 21st and 167th.
That's one we're
Yep.
talking about.
The
Okay.
issue, the other reason why we like the idea of roundabout there is it isn't, this is a wide open intersection. You can literally see for a mile in any direction. And the locals have all figured it out. There's no place for the sheriff to hide. I'm gonna know a half mile in advance if there is a sheriff coming in. So they know, we've actually been out there putting in signs, doing maintenance, and watched cars take their foot off the gas, look both ways, gun it, and go through the intersection because they don't see any cars. And they can see no sheriffs around. They literally run it on purpose. And some people get used to that and they misjudge it, and we end up with crashes. So what'll happen is with a signal, that's not gonna change. They're gonna run the signal just as often as they run a stop sign.
Right.
So a roundabout's going to cause them to slow down and have to go around. They don't necessarily need to stop, but they need to slow down and get around, and that's going to increase the safety. And that's why we're kind of leaning toward a roundabout at that location.
Do you have a follow-up, Hugh?
Different topic.
Okay, let's stay on this topic and then come back. Mr. Wadle?
Yeah, Lynn, are there any savings from electricity costs and maintenance costs as well with a roundabout versus a signalized intersection?
You would think off the top, real quick, that you wouldn't have the recurring electricity costs that go into the signal, and there is, so definitely has savings. But if we end up doing asphalt as the medium out there, it's probably going to offshoot each other. If we go for a little higher cost and do concrete, I think you will see an increase in the upfront cost, but long-term, it'll definitely be a cheaper lifespan cost of that project.
One more question before we circle back to Mr. Nix. What year is this planned for?
Currently, right now, it's
27?
27 or 28.
27 or 20, okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Nix?
At one time, it seemed to me on maintenance of roads, I don't know how many years ago this happened. It was like every 5 years. I know costs have escalated, and then it seemed like we went to 6 years. And now I see in this report it's 6 to 7 years.
We are actually, that's a really good point. I appreciate the fact that you've been watching that. We have traditionally been on a 5-year, my first 15 years here, we're on a rotating 5-year basis. And what we ended up doing, and we had to admit it to ourselves, we were taking care of and maintaining some roads that didn't quite need to be yet maintained. So we have been pushing that out, and we're actually in the process of transitioning over to an as-needed basis. Our records indicate, and we've looked at what other cities and counties are doing in this area, Kansas specifically, but South Central area, and we're finding that really it's a 6 to 10 year span that you're going to need to touch your roads. We don't expect it to change any, but we're actually going to go out there. We have gone in and we're expending funds to get basically a AI-enabled camera view that's going to allow us to go through and drive roads at speeds, be able to grade our roads, and give us a score on what's going on. And then we're going to end up going on an as-needed basis. We expect that to come back and still be within a 6 to 10 year span that we're going to touch all of our roads.
I don't want to beat this up, but man, it seems like we had, I don't remember, I could have been dreaming, but we had a report some time ago about the different types of roads that we were maybe we're just testing them. I'm not really sure, to try to figure out which one would wear better than another. Weren't there 5 or 6 different examples?
Yes.
Wonder
So
if we finally settled on one as far as.
What we were testing was different thicknesses out there and different types of asphalt. What we basically learned was trying to go cheaper isn't going to cut it. If we can get away with cutting an inch and a half or so out of the roads in specific areas, the caveat to that is we have to do a lot of geological testing in that area to make sure that that's the right base for us to be able to do that. So those costs we end up putting it up front versus into the underground testing versus on top of the road. So we've right now paused that and have gone back to our 6-inch typical thickness and reinstated our rock and geogrid base to be able to make sure we're providing a consistent quality product for the taxpayers' dollars.
Real quick, on slide 24, you mentioned partnerships with City of Wichita on B528. And I noticed that's a bridge on 21st Street between 119th and 135th. And in the notes, it says delayed City of Wichita. What's going on there? Is that a shared half and half with the city and they're pushing it out, or?
Yeah, so.
It's in my part of the woods, so that's why I'm asking.
So what it was is in last year's CIP, we had that project. I can't remember the year, maybe 2027 or 2028. And then kind of after reviewing the city CIP, they were going back and rebuilding that entire mile of 21st Street. And so we thought, well, why would we build a bridge 3 years before you go in and build the road? It's better just put those projects together and do it all at once and make sure that everything ties
So
in
it's just
nicely.
aligning it in the
Just
time.
aligning with the
Okay.
project that the city has, yes.
We were not trying to indicate that we're delaying because of the City of Wichita.
No.
It was simply just so we can align it and do the project as a single and make sure that the bridge met their needs as a road, because they will be most likely maintaining that out
Right.
going forward
Okay,
afterwards.
thank you. Mr. Nix?
Different topic?
Yes, sir.
So, on the funding for the Northwest Expressway, at $1 million a year from the county and matched by KDOT, $10 million over 4 years, maybe five years, I guess it is. Does that even, and for right-of-way acquisition, does that even make a dent in completing the acquisition that's needed before we would start a project?
It actually does. In fact, I'm giving a presentation to REAP this afternoon at lunch. We've spent about $14.1 million on right-of-way out there since 2006, I think, 2007. And we have about, I believe, $7 million, quote unquote, in the bank with KDOT available to spend on right-of-way as it becomes available. KDOT in the last year and a half or so has acquired an additional, I think, 9 or 10 acres out there for the project. It's still, as properties become available, as people are looking at developing, it's trying to be proactive in that corridor and get the right of way before development occurs and gets really expensive to get that right of way.
Also, Mr. Nix, I understand that there's about 38% of the land has been acquired of what is needed for it. So close to halfway there. It's important to KDOT to continue to fund it. Right now, I understand that that is supposed to cease to exist in '25. It's only renewed through '25 right now.
Correct. Our current contract with the cities and with the KDOT expires in '25, and we will see if KDOT's willing to continue their $1 million, maximum $1 million contribution. So it's been a great boon to that project to be able to have $2 million a year going in to obtain a right-of-way.
Right.
Well, kind of lost track of time, but seems like I went to a couple meetings 15 or 20 years ago, maybe, where we had schematic drawings of the, yeah, I just wondered if it'd be completed before I die. That's what I was wondering.
Hope the land gets acquired before. Yeah. So right now, I know there's a concept done in 2005, and there is a protective overlay for that siting, but it needs continued investment, continued purchase of property. We need to have more groups other than just county, personal opinion, county, Mays, and Goddard weighing in on it. So groups like REAP that Mr. Packer's speaking to today will get an update. So hopefully you can share that presentation. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions on projects before you? Northeast Expressway? That was before
As far
my
as
time.
construction or the whole? That was brought up in the 80s and started in, I want to say that was a 4-year construction project, I believe, 92 to 96.
Yeah.
And I'll have to admit, that was a little bit before my time here, so I don't know the total history of how much time they had talked about it leading up to it. But I'm definitely, on that type of a project, that scale, you're probably looking at about 10 years at least.
All right, well, thank you. No more questions. We'll let you finish up.
All right, let's advance the slides to where we were. Okay, so going back to the community investments plan, again, we're trying to show that we're in conformance with that. So goal number 1 of that plan is to preserve and maintain a safe, cost-effective, and reliable transportation system that strategically supports the economic growth, vitality, and quality of life aspirations of our community. Next slide. We feel that we have met that goal. The proposed CIP continues to make most investments, 68% of our investments, in preservation of the existing systems with strategic enhancements where needed. Next slide, please. The second goal for transportation in the community investments plan is to improve and increase the movement of goods, people, and information with better connectivity and mobility options in our community. Next slide. Again, we feel that we have met that. We are investing in bicycle and pedestrian facilities that connect cities and communities and provide interlocal mobility options. Continuing investments in long-range planning for the Northwest Expressway prepare the community for future growth and enhanced mobility. Next slide. So we are requesting that the Advanced Plans Committee recommend that the full MAPC find the proposed 2025 through 2029 capital improvement program to be in conformance with the Community Investments Plan.
Any further questions or comments for the presentation? Mr. McKay.
In the first part of this presentation, we talked about maintenance of facilities for jail and delinquency place. Do we have a maintenance type program on those mechanical projects that we either do it ourselves, or is it just hit and miss as it needed?
It is, I'll step over here. They do have a maintenance schedule and program for the future. These are things that just, bubble to the surface when we realize how old some of the boilers and storage tanks are. and need to be repaired and replaced. But they do have a schedule for improvement and maintenance.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I make a motion that the MAPC find the proposed 2025-2029 capital improvement program to be in conformance with the community investments plan. Second by Ms. Miles. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is a parking RFP update by Justin.
Good morning, everybody. Justin Constantino with the Planning Department. Just a quick update on this item. MAPD is currently undergoing a process to review and align our parking requirements with community goals. This effort will focus on the potential update of both the Unified Zoning Code and the Comprehensive Plan. In April of 2024, staff solicited proposals from qualified companies to provide professional services to assist with the undertaking of this process. Staff received several proposals. The RFP selection committee met to review the proposals on May 22nd. Upon review, the selection committee chose to reject the responses to the RFP as the proposals did not align with the project budget. The selection committee recommended revising the RFP document and releasing a revised version of that RFP document. Planning staff are currently in the process of revising and reissuing that parking RFP, and we anticipate releasing the revision in late June or early July, so very soon. The revised timeline will likely place approval of a contract to the City Council in August or September. So that's kind of where we're at with this process at the moment. Any questions on this particular project or kind of where we're at in the timeline?
Seeing none. I think we just need to receive and file this.
Yes,
So
sir.
No votes needed, so we can move on to the College Hill neighborhood plan, if you're ready.
Sure.
Okay.
So as we have mentioned in previous meetings, planning staff is currently working with College Hill stakeholders to develop a plan for the College Hill neighborhood. The plan would serve as a guide for future policies, programs, infrastructure. We're working with a consultant and a 15-member steering committee, which was appointed by the City Council back in November of 2023. That steering committee consists of College Hill residents, business owners, stakeholders. We had a project team. We hosted a community kickoff meeting back in March of 2024. The event drew over 200 attendees. In late April, the project team released the public online survey with a corresponding interactive map. That survey allowed stakeholders to provide input on several topics related to the neighborhood, including housing, mobility, development, parks, community image. That interactive map allowed users to pinpoint specific locations and provide feedback on particular locations. That survey closed on June 3rd, so recently. We had 530 survey responses, which is quite an update from the last meeting that we had when we were kind of hovering around the mid-200s range. So it finally closed on June 3rd with 530 survey responses. Of those responses, 70% of the survey takers were residents of the College Hill neighborhood. On May 6th, the project team hosted individual focus group meetings for the business community, school and education leadership, and churches and nonprofits to gather additional feedback. We found that those groups provided unique insight into the neighborhood. Next steps, on June 18th, the planning department will host the fourth steering committee meeting in person from 4:00 p.m. to 6:00 p.m. at Grace Presbyterian Church at 5002 East Douglas Avenue. The project team will be providing an update on the data from the public online survey, the touchpoint map, those recent focus group meetings that I mentioned, as well as the public open house data. So we are moving ahead with this plan, and our next step is that June 18th meeting with the steering committee.
Okay. Mr. McKay.
I know that it's been published, but for my benefit, what is just the boundaries of classification of the College Hill neighborhood?
Sure. So to the west, it would be Hillside. To the south, it is US 54 400. To the north, Central. And to the east, it would be Oliver.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, this too is a receive and file, so thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Move on to the MAPD update by Mr. Wadle.
Yes, sir. If it's okay, I'd like to do it from here just because it's a more casual kind of review.
You don't want to get your steps in?
I can if you'd like me to.
Go ahead.
So in terms of the monthly report on kind of where we're at, one thing I'd like to add that's not printed in the report, so I'll cover it first, is that there's a continuing conversation about MAPD fees and specifically fees for city cases. Last year, as part of the budget process, both the city and the county approved a budget with a 10% increase in fees. That 10% is actually less than the amount of inflation that has occurred since those fees were last raised. So I just want to make you all aware that those conversations are still ongoing. We expect that we'll have something submitted to the city council probably in July for that increase. And we're in conversations right now about what specifically should be the increase. We know that 10% was what was approved, but there's some conversation perhaps in light of what's happening in the future with the finances of the city especially, that we may come in a little bit higher than that. And so we'll keep you all posted on that, but because of the timing, if it's brought to the city council sometime in July, early July, this is your meeting to hear about it prior to it being on the agenda. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
Thank you.
The other thing then is to go through the report, and I'll just, on page 3, the graphs there, we're seeing a continuation of what we saw from earlier in this year, which is we still have a good number of cases. It's lower than what we saw last year, but it's still a steady amount of work. Although with that said, we do have one MAPC meeting coming up where I think we only had a handful of cases. What we've seen since then is that a number of cases have gotten deferred, so that meeting still will be, a fair amount of cases as opposed to 2 or 3. So. When we look at the subdivision cases, the volume there is also a little bit lower than what we saw last year, although we did see one significant spike for the subdivision committee. They had a lot of cases, and you will see a lot of them on your MAPC agenda this afternoon. But what we're finding with subdivision is, again, continuation of what we saw earlier, which is that although there are fewer cases than last year, there will be more lots created. So that means, to me, that translates to more home starts and more properties getting ready for that. In terms of workload for staff on page 7, we've got a graph that shows that, and we've had a number of instances where the number of case numbers have exceeded our staff capacity and current plans. Although, fortunately, given the complexity of the cases and the types of cases, they've been able to accommodate those with existing staff. So we've been very fortunate there. In terms of staffing on page 8, you'll see the pie charts that represent our different divisions. We still have 4 positions to fill. We've made offers for 2 of those positions. We had one person accept it, and then later on came back and said that circumstances had changed for them and they were no longer interested. So we've offered that to the next person. We're flying that position again. The other position, we had over 40 or 50 applicants for. We made an offer. Person was already working in the city of Wichita and decided that they did not want to move at this time to a different department. So we made an offer to the second person, and they've accepted. And so we're excited to have them. Both scored very highly, so we're excited to have them here. And then we have some really good candidates for one of the third positions, and very excited about being able to. We're hoping to make a hiring offer early next week. So just so you know, that's what we're working through. Page 9 has a list of the activity that we've seen this year. Short-term rentals on page 10 and 11. Where we are now is that we have the company, we have the contract and the company in place, and they've set up our system for short-term rental monitoring. So we are aware we know the locations of approximately 80% of the short-term rentals here in Wichita, operating in the city of Wichita. There's approximately 550 short-term rentals operating. Earlier this year, there were about almost 600. And we started out the year with about 580, 590. What we've seen and what we've heard from operators of short-term rentals is that it appears that the market is saturated. And so even ones that have been in existence for a number of years have started to see a decrease in terms of the number of times that they're being rented. And so I think we've seen that saturation, and that as a result, we've seen the number of short-term rentals decrease slightly over the past few months. Now, in terms of where we are with the planning department, so we do the zoning portion. We've had approximately 30, 40, somewhere in that ballpark, applications come in for the zoning. Through that process, if you'll remember, there's no public hearing unless there are more than 50% of the adjoining and abutting properties owners protest. We've only had one case out of all of those that has gotten to that level, and it got to 50%. It did not go above 50%, so it did not go to a conditional use. So to me, what that shows is that I think we've got a pretty good fit for the community in terms of process, because we're finding that these have not been so controversial that they've caused them to go to conditional uses. That's my initial read on it. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year. So, and then there's a licensing component, and our numbers are a little bit less for that than for the zoning. The challenge that we have is that they have until September to get licensed and registered to be in compliance with both the zoning code and the municipal code. So we're rapidly approaching that, and we have about 40 of them. So we really have about 500 left to go, or maybe just shy of that. So we'll see. It could be a busy year for us as we get towards September. Then I'm going to transition. I'm going to just keep rolling through. On page 12 and 13, we talk about solar, and that's on 14 as well. This is primarily for the county. Well, it affects the city and the county, but the dialogue has really been at the county level in terms of implications and complexity. The county commission extended the moratorium to September, and they've secured a contract with a consultant to evaluate the recommendations that were provided by the MAPC, and also to look at national best practices. And that company is in the process of doing that right now. So we're very excited to see what they come up with. Public notifications on page 15. For this one, we're in the process of updating a report about what the DAB reviews and comments were. And we're putting together a table to make that easier for the elected officials to review. So we hope to have that done I'd say next week, and then present that to the city manager's office.
Will that final report come before MAPC as well?
We will bring it to you as an information item. It's my understanding at this point the city council has really taken that one up for consideration themselves. In terms of the next item, 17, is event permits in the county. And really this is about event centers in the county, both in terms of zoning and permitting. And that we hope to kick that off, I think, quite substantially later this month and into next with a staff team, and starting to put together some options for the county commission to consider. In addition to that, the county commission has requested and prioritized that we look at short-term rent. So we'll see that come up as well. College Hill Neighborhood Plan and Parking and Zoning, you've received updates from that from Justin. And then daycares and zoning, we had a staff meeting with an elected official, and they are exploring the idea of possibly allowing daycares, home occupation daycares, to operate not as a home occupation, but rather just as a daycare to operate by right on residential property. And so that's an option that we're looking at and drawing up. Now, it's not. Next time I'm going to the public. Sorry, I guess this is an example of how long-winded the planning director is. But it's not listed in the packet, but I do want to make you aware that we are receiving a lot of requests for services, and some of that includes signage, changes to the sign code, some of it's zoning code. So we are working on a process of how to prioritize those for both the city and the county, and then looking to see how we bring those lists together to create one annual work plan for the planning department. So just be aware, just want to make you aware we're going through that. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Nix?
On the
Cindy, I didn't see it.
solar study, I guess we have until September for them to complete their study. Is that right?
Well,
Moratorium, they have a moratorium until September.
correct. So they would, if they want to have changes prior to an application being submitted, the BOCC would have to adopt those amendments or any changes prior to them with enough time for it to be published to become official and in effect.
All right, so we don't have to start over with, I mean, Justin gave us report after report after report and meeting after meeting after meeting. So we don't have to go through that process again, that's what I'm saying.
No, sir. And at this point, what has happened is that the BOCC has taken the MAPC recommendation and deferred it, I think 2 or 3 times so far, so that your recommendation is still the active item that they are considering. And so they could always have the option of sending it back to you, but because they've deferred it, they don't have to. So they could take action themselves based on what they see from the report.
Commissioner Miles?
So Scott, will we, with looking at event centers, will we get an update as to how many existing event centers there are out in the county? And can we put mics in the CIP in the next couple of years?
In terms of microphones, I'll be smarter about how I use them. But for the event centers, it's a little bit difficult out in the county because they are allowed by right on properties that are 20 acres or larger, is my recollection. And so that creates complexity in terms of monitoring them because they're not licensed, so we wouldn't know where they all are.
Any other questions for Mr. Wadle? Okay, seeing none, thank you. That too is a receive and file. So public comments, I don't believe we have any guests here today. So we'll go on past that. I have no other business other than maybe in addition to the mics, check the AC for the MAPC meeting later this afternoon because it should probably be a full room. So get that thing cranked down. Does anyone else have any business for the group? Seeing none, I will remind you that our next meeting is Thursday, July 11th at 10 a.m.
And Mr. Chairperson, if I may, I know that we had heard from the county folks today for the CIP.
City.
Yes, the city is kind of on an alternative timeline. So what we're looking to see is a similar presentation coming from the finance department.
Right.
And they intend to complete their CIP by July 16th and likely have it adopted by August 20th. So that kind of gives us a little bit of a future timeline for,
August meeting.
it would likely be a special meeting for July 25th. Is kind of what we've slated in there currently. We do have another advanced plans committee meeting between now and July 25th. So we could always select that date as a tentative date and then potentially adjust accordingly based on schedules. But the goal would be to have the Advanced Plans Committee hold a special meeting on July 25th, which is a Thursday, be 2 weeks from the regular meeting. Then the full MAPC would hear that item on August 8th, and then the City Council would hear it finally on August 20th.
So why couldn't we do it on the August 8th Advanced Plans Committee meeting?
You could. It would be a double meeting. So if there were any recommendations or anything came out of that meeting from the Advanced Plans Committee on August 8th, you would have a follow-up meeting just shortly after that. So there could be a little bit of friction between those two, but
All right, well, we can talk about that as a group and then,
Well, as far as this committee's schedule is not that heavy, just have one meeting whenever that's approved, like you said, the 15th of July is when they're gonna be done with it?
they will be done 16th of July. is
Okay,
their
so
intent.
somewhere between there and the 8th, we'd have just one meeting rather than have 2 meetings.
we'll work this out to be a little bit more efficient. I don't like to have a lot of extra meetings, but
You could take the regular meeting, cancel it, and have the special meeting.
yeah. We'll work this out and report back to everybody.
Sure, I just wanted to provide an update.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right. Seeing no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you.